Okay, so get this. What if gravity wasn't a pull, but like a push?
Whoa.
I know, right? That's just one of the wild ideas that we're
Yeah.
going to be diving into today with the unified theory of you.
Yes.
Like, imagine a theory that tries
Yeah.
to explain everything in the universe,
Pretty ambitious.
from like why planets orbit to
Uh-huh.
what's causing the universe to expand, you know?
Yeah, it's a bold attempt to try to create a single framework
Yeah,
that can explain some of the biggest mysteries in cosmology.
exactly. And we've got chapters from a book
Okay.
that are dedicated to this theory.
Wow.
And we're going to try to like break it down, you know,
Yeah.
for you, like, what are the main ideas? Do they actually explain what we see in the cosmos?
Yeah.
And most importantly, does any of it like hold up scientifically?
Right. Yeah, it's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah.
But you're right. We need to approach this with a healthy dose of skepticism
Oh, yeah, for sure.
because this theory really challenges some very fundamental ideas in physics.
Okay, so to understand like where this new theory fits in,
Uh-huh.
let's just do a real quick recap of what we already know about gravity.
Okay.
You know, you've probably heard of Newton's idea
Yeah.
of gravity as this force of attraction between objects,
Right.
right? And then Einstein came along and was like, nope, it's all about the curvature of spacetime.
Right. And those theories have been incredibly successful
Yeah.
in explaining a lot of what we observe.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's still some big question marks,
Yeah.
like the whole dark matter and dark energy conundrum.
Exactly. And that's where the unified theory of you
Comes in.
comes in. It basically says, hold on, what if gravity isn't an attraction at all,
Yeah.
but a push?
That's the core idea.
Right.
Instead of objects pulling each other,
Uh-huh.
are being pushed together by something called the subtle magnetic field,
Okay.
or SMF,
SMF? Okay.
interacting with something called the relative vacuum of space,
Okay.
or RVS.
Okay, so two new concepts to unpack here. Let's
Let's start with the SMF.
start with the SMF.
Okay.
It's not the magnetism we learned about in school, right?
Not quite.
Okay.
Think of it more as a field
Okay.
that originates from consciousness itself,
Oh.
a concept that goes beyond our typical understanding of dimensions.
Okay, so a consciousness field.
Yeah.
So is this theory saying that our thoughts have magnetic properties?
Not exactly magnetic in the traditional sense.
Okay.
It's more about how consciousness interacts with the fabric of space-time.
Okay.
But before we jump ahead,
Okay.
let's talk about the other key concept, the RVS.
Okay.
You see, space isn't actually empty.
Uh-huh.
It has varying levels of pressure.
Okay.
And this pressure interacts with the SMF to create what we experience as gravity.
So instead of being pulled towards the Earth,
Yeah.
I'm actually being pushed down
Yeah.
by the pressure of space.
You got it.
I know, crazy.
Imagine this. The SMF creates pressure differences in the RVS.
Okay.
Sort of like the way air pressure differences on Earth create wind. Areas with a stronger SMF have higher pressure, pushing objects towards those zones.
Okay, so if I'm following you,
Yeah.
the reason I feel heavier on Earth than on the moon is because Earth has a stronger SMF than the moon.
Exactly.
Okay.
The Earth's SMF creates a higher pressure zone in the RVS,
Uh-huh.
resulting in the force we feel as gravity.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's like the Earth is creating its own gravitational weather in the RVS.
You could say that.
I like that.
And this pressure concept also helps explain how orbits work.
Okay.
Planets are held in their orbits,
Uh-huh.
not by being pulled towards the sun,
Right.
but by a balance of pressure created by the sun's SMF interacting with the RVS.
Okay.
They're essentially being pushed into a stable path around the sun.
Okay. I'm starting to get the picture here.
Good.
But this is all very different from how we traditionally think about gravity.
Yeah.
So are there any observations that actually support this push gravity idea?
Well, the book offers several examples,
Okay.
and one of them is gravitational lensing, which is the bending of light around massive objects. This is something we can actually observe.
Right. I remember learning that Einstein explained this
Yeah.
with the warping of space-time by massive objects.
That's the prevailing explanation.
Okay.
But the unified theory of you suggests that this bending could also be explained
Okay.
by the SMF of a massive object affecting the pressure of the RVS.
Okay.
The light is essentially being pushed along a curved path
Ugh.
by the pressure gradients created by the SMF.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's offering an alternative explanation for
Well-
something we've already observed.
Exactly.
What other evidence does it present?
Well, there's the cosmic microwave background radiation, or CMB.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a faint afterglow of the Big Bang.
Uh-huh.
You could think of it as a baby picture of the universe.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. It shows the very early universe, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the unified theory of view suggests that the patterns we see in the CMB
Yeah.
might actually be imprints of early interactions
Okay.
between the SMF and the RVS, like a cosmic fingerprint from the universe's birth.
Okay, so this theory is starting to connect some of the dots between these big cosmic phenomena.
Yeah.
What about time dilation?
Uh-huh.
The idea that gravity affects how time flows? Can this theory explain that too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The theory suggests that regions with a stronger SMF have a greater influence on the fabric of space-time itself,
Uh-huh.
causing time to slow down in those regions.
Okay.
So instead of gravity warping space-time,
Mm-hmm.
it's the SMF that's influencing it.
So it's like the SMF is the architect of both space and time.
It is.
That's a pretty big claim.
It is. And remember, this is all still theoretical.
Of course.
It needs much more research and validation
Yeah.
before we can say for sure if this is how the universe actually works.
Of course. But let's imagine just for a moment
Yeah.
that this theory is right.
Okay.
It would mean we don't need these mysterious concepts of dark matter and dark energy to explain what we observe, right?
That's one of the most intriguing implications of this theory.
Yeah.
Instead of relying on these invisible substances,
Yeah.
it suggests that the effects we attribute to dark matter and dark energy
Mm-hmm.
are actually caused by the SMF and its influence on the RVS.
So you're telling me this one idea could rewrite our entire understanding of the universe's composition.
It's definitely a radical shift in our understanding.
That's huge.
It's an idea that's worth exploring.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got gravity as a push, the SMF as this cosmic architect,
Yes.
and potentially no more need for dark matter and dark energy, but wait, there's more, right?
There is.
Something about the moon.
Ah, yes. This is where it gets a bit strange.
Okay.
The unified theory of view proposes that our moon
Mm-hmm.
was once a dwarf star.
Hold on, the moon? A star? How did they come up with that?
Well, to understand that, we first need to delve a little deeper
Okay.
into how the SMS influences the life cycle of stars
Okay.
and the formation of planets.
Okay.
And that's what we'll pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, sounds good.
So you might be wondering how a theory about, like, gravity and consciousness could lead to the idea that our moon was once a star.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild concept to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
In the last part, you mentioned that, like, the key lies in how the SMF influences the life cycle of stars.
Right.
Can you elaborate on that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The unified theory of view suggests that the SMF isn't just some passive field.
Yeah.
It actually plays an active role in shaping the cosmos, including the birth, evolution, and even death of stars.
So how does that work? How does the SMF create a star?
So remember how we talked about the SMF creating these pressure differences in the relative vacuum of space?
Yeah.
Well, imagine a region of space where the SMF is particularly strong.
Okay.
This high pressure zone can start to compress the interstellar gas and dust in that region,
Okay, like a cosmic vacuum cleaner pulling everything together?
more like a cosmic pressure cooker.
Okay.
As the gas and dust get squeezed tighter and tighter by the pressure from the SMF, it heats up. Eventually, the temperature and pressure get so high that nuclear fusion ignites.
Oh.
And boom, a star is born.
So the SMF is basically the catalyst for star formation.
That's the idea. Now, according to the unified theory of view, the strength of the SMF can vary significantly across the cosmos.
Okay.
And this variation can lead to the formation of, like, different types of stars.
Okay, so a stronger SMF might create a bigger, hotter star.
Exactly. And a weaker SMF might lead to the formation of a smaller, cooler star, like a red dwarf.
Okay.
Now, here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
The theory suggests that our sun might have actually formed in a region with a relatively weak SMF.
Wait, so our sun is a bit of an underachiever in the cosmic scheme of things?
Well, not necessarily an underachiever.
Sure.
It just means it might have had a different evolutionary path
Okay.
than stars that formed in regions with stronger SMF.
Okay, I'm following you so far.
Good.
Hmm. But how does all of this connect to the moon being a former star?
Well, the theory suggests that when our sun was forming, there was another smaller star forming nearby.
Okay.
This smaller star had an even weaker SMF than the sun,
Okay.
making it a dwarf star.
So we had like two baby stars just hanging out together in the early solar system.
That's the idea. Now, over billions of years, this dwarf star eventually exhausted its nuclear fuel
Mm-hmm.
and went through this process of cooling and contraction.
So it went from like a blazing ball of fire to, what, a giant cold rock?
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
The theory suggests that this cooled down, contracted dwarf star
Uh-huh.
is what we now know as our moon.
But if that's true, wouldn't there be some evidence of the moon's fiery past?
There is. Remember how we talked about the presence of helium-3 on the moon?
Yeah.
Helium-3 is this isotope of helium that's incredibly rare on Earth.
Right.
It's typically found in environments with extremely high temperatures and pressures.
Like the conditions inside a star.
Exactly. The presence of helium-3 on the moon is one of the key pieces of evidence that supports the idea that it was once a dwarf star.
Okay, I have to admit that's pretty compelling. But even if the moon was once a star, how did it end up orbiting the Earth?
Well, the theory suggests that the gravitational interactions
Uh-huh.
between the young sun, the dwarf star,
Yeah.
and the other planets in the early solar system
Yeah.
eventually led to the dwarf star being captured into orbit around the Earth.
So it was like a cosmic game of billiards with the moon ending up stuck in Earth's gravitational pool table.
You could say that it's a complex process.
Yeah.
The details are still being worked out, but the idea is that the moon's current orbit
Yeah.
is the result of this long and chaotic history of gravitational interaction.
That's incredible. I mean, if this theory is right, then we're not just orbiting a moon,
Right.
we're orbiting a dead star.
It definitely adds a layer of cosmic drama
Yeah.
to our celestial neighborhood.
You're sure.
But remember, this is just one interpretation of the evidence.
Right, of course.
There are other scientists who have different explanations for the moon's formation.
Of course, but it's fascinating to consider the possibility that our moon might have such a dramatic origin story.
It is.
And speaking of dramatic origins, let's get back to the SMF and its connection to consciousness.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier that this field originates from consciousness itself.
Right.
What does that even mean?
That's where we start to delve into the more mind-bending philosophical aspects of this theory.
Okay.
You see, the unified theory of you proposes that consciousness isn't just a byproduct of the brain, but a fundamental aspect of reality itself.
Okay, you're going to have to break that down for me. Are you saying that our thoughts and feelings actually exist as a physical force in the universe?
That's what this theory is suggesting.
Whoa.
It proposes that the SMF acts as a bridge between the mental and the physical, allowing consciousness to interact with and influence the fabric of space-time.
Okay.
Think about it this way. If the SMF can create stars and shape the structure of the universe,
Yeah.
and if the SMF originates from consciousness, then it stands to reason that consciousness itself
Yeah.
must have a profound impact on reality.
Whoa. That's a lot to process. So are you saying that my thoughts are literally creating ripples in the fabric of space-time?
That's one way to think about it.
Okay.
The theory suggests that our thoughts, feelings, and intentions aren't just ephemeral things that exist only in our heads.
Right.
They have a real, measurable impact
Oh.
on the universe around us.
That's both empowering and a little terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
If our thoughts have that much power,
Yeah,
then we have a huge responsibility to use them wisely.
absolutely. And that brings us to one of the most intriguing questions raised by this theory.
Okay, what's that?
If the SMF originates from consciousness,
Uh-huh.
can we actually measure it?
Oh, that's a great question.
And if so, what would that tell us
Yeah.
about the nature of consciousness itself?
That's a great question, and I think that's a perfect place to pause for now. We'll delve into the potential for measuring the SMF and its implications for our understanding of consciousness when we return for the final part of our deep dive. So welcome back to our deep dive into the unified theory of you. We've covered a lot of ground from gravity as a push to the moon's potential past as a dwarf star. But you know what really has me hooked is this idea that our consciousness might actually be a force shaping the universe.
It's definitely a concept that challenges our conventional understanding of both physics and consciousness.
For sure. In the last part, we were talking about the possibility of measuring the SMF. If this field is really emanating from consciousness itself, could we actually detect it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The book we're exploring does offer some intriguing possibilities for testing this theory.
Okay. I'm really curious to hear this. What kind of experiments are we talking about?
Well, for starters, the book provides a series of mathematical formulas based on the SMF and RVS framework.
Okay.
These formulas are designed to predict a whole range of phenomena, from the way galaxies rotate to the properties of black holes.
So if scientists could take real-world data and plug it into these formulas and the predictions match the observations, that would lend some credibility to the theory.
Exactly. It's all about finding those points of convergence between the theory's predictions and the observable universe.
Yeah.
One fascinating example is a formula for calculating the precession rate of planets.
Precession rate. Refresh my memory on what precession is again.
You know how a spinning top wobbles as it slows down?
Yeah.
That's precession.
Yeah.
Planets do the same thing. Their axis of rotation wobbles slightly over time.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that the book claims to accurately predict the precession rate of Mercury using its SMF-based calculations.
Wow. So if astronomers could confirm that the calculations match Mercury's observed precession, it would suggest that the theory is on the right track.
Precisely. And there are other formulas, too, for things like the expansion rate of the universe, the relationship between energy and mass, and even how the RVS might influence atmospheric pressure here on Earth.
Wow, that's a pretty comprehensive set of predictions. But even if these formulas do hold up, they're still dealing with large-scale phenomena. What about measuring the SMF on a more individual level, like for a single person?
That's where things get even more challenging.
Hmm.
The SMF, as it's described in this theory, is incredibly subtle.
Yeah,
It's not something we can easily detect with our current technology.
right.
But the book does suggest that future advancements in our understanding of magnetism and our ability to measure extremely weak magnetic fields could potentially open up new avenues for detecting the SMF.
Okay, so we might need some next-level science to actually measure the consciousness field, but even if we can't measure it directly yet, are there any indirect ways to test the theory's claims about the SMF's influence on consciousness?
There are some scientists who are exploring the idea of looking for correlations between brain activity and fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field.
That's interesting. So if our thoughts and emotions are really creating ripples in the SMF, those ripples might be detectable as subtle changes in the Earth's magnetic field.
It's a long shot, but it's an avenue worth exploring. And then there's the whole question of how the SMF might interact with living organisms. Remember, the theory suggests that the SMF permeates everything, including us.
Right. So how would the SMF affect our biology?
Well, one idea is that the SMF might play a role in the formation and development of life itself. Imagine the SMF acting as a sort of blueprint, guiding the organization of matter into complex biological structures.
Like a cosmic conductor orchestrating the symphony of life?
Exactly. And once life emerges, the SMF might continue to influence biological processes, from cellular communication to DNA replication.
So it's like our consciousness, our own personal SMF, is in constant dialogue with our bodies, influencing how they function and how we experience the world.
That's one interpretation. And it goes even further. The theory suggests that the collective SMF of all living beings on a planet can actually influence the planet's own SMF.
Wait, so you're saying that humanity's collective consciousness could actually be shaping the Earth's magnetic field?
It's a bold claim. But that's the implication. Imagine the combined consciousness of billions of people creating a sort of global SMF that interacts with the Earth's own magnetic field, creating this feedback loop between human consciousness and the planet.
That's both awe-inspiring and a little bit scary. It means we have a much bigger impact on the world than we realize.
Exactly. This theory suggests that our thoughts, emotions, and intentions are not just isolated events happening inside our heads. They're ripples in this vast interconnected field of consciousness that's shaping the very fabric of reality.
That's a pretty profound way to think about our place in the universe. It makes you realize the importance of cultivating positive thoughts and intentions, not just for our own well-being, but for the well-being of the planet as a whole.
Absolutely. And this brings us to one of the most hopeful aspects of this theory. If the SMF is indeed influenced by consciousness, then it stands to reason that we have the power to change it.
So you're saying that if we could collectively raise our consciousness, focus on love, compassion, and understanding, we could actually create a positive shift in the SMF, not just for ourselves, but for the entire planet.
It's a possibility that this theory offers.
Yeah.
It suggests that we're not just passive observers of the universe, but active participants in its evolution. We have the power to shape reality with our thoughts, our actions, and our collective consciousness.
That's an incredible message of hope and empowerment. It makes you want to go out and make a difference to contribute to the collective upliftment of consciousness.
It certainly does. And whether or not the unified theory of you ultimately proves to be correct, it's a theory that invites us to consider our interconnectedness, our potential, and our responsibility to create a more harmonious and conscious world.
Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the unified theory of you. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling this mix of wonder, excitement, and like a renewed sense of purpose. It's been quite a journey.
It has. And I hope our listeners have found it as thought-provoking and inspiring as we have.
I'm sure they have. And who knows, maybe this deep dive will spark a new wave of scientific exploration, leading to discoveries that could change our understanding of the universe and ourselves forever. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.
Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of the cosmos and remember the power of your own consciousness.